This is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with Dom Fay and Michael Whiting.
Yes, for the first time in season 2014, we're sitting here 2 wins in a row, Mike, and wasn't it impressive on Saturday night at Etihad?
Yep, off the bottom, Dom, finally. It was really good to see. I was watching it on the TV at home and getting a bit nervous in that last quarter, though. The boys looked like they were running out of legs there, and I wouldn't say they were trying to lose it, but gee, they made it a bit more nerve-wracking than it looked like it was going to be.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that a growing team, a young team has to learn, and you know, one of them is obviously winning heavily, one is being able to control a match, and another one is being able to hold on to a match when it looks like you might lose it, because, you know, these are all circumstances you're going to have to face at times when you're growing as a team. So, I mean, it's probably a good thing developmentally that we hold on just as we have against St Kilda and Carlton. But it would be nice to get a bit of breathing space in one of these games.
Yeah, it was very much like the St Kilda game. It wasn't a nice lead at halftime, and then just little bit by little bit, they just hung on. So, well deserved in the end, though. Like, definitely over the course of 4 quarters, the Lions were the far better team. And we've seen the last couple of weeks, haven't we, a bit more reason for optimism and a bit of, I guess, the evidence of what Justin Lepich and a few of the players had spoken about in the first half of the season about patience and seeing the young kids develop and that sort of stuff. And we've seen a bit of evidence with wins in the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
absolutely. A highlight for many people was the goal that went through the 3 Mozzies, or the 3 Musketeers, whatever you want to call them. Lewis Taylor, obviously, Josh Green and Dane Zorko, who, as Justin Lepich commented post-match, are really forming a weapon for the club going forward. But, you know, there were so many impressive parts about the game that we probably should go through. They're one of them. Stephen Martin in the ruck is one I absolutely want to touch on. I mean, I think he was arguably the most influential performance by a ruckman we've had this season, by someone who most were wondering, is he going to play footy again at senior level?
Yeah, well, absolutely. He even spoke to the media on Tuesday and said that he realises it was his last chance. Like, he came into this year behind Matthew Leuenberger and Trent West, and unluckily for those guys, but luckily for Steph, they got injured, and probably at the right time for Steph, because he's only been back in reserves 2 weeks. So he realised it was his last chance to make an impression at AFL level, and gee, I didn't expect him to produce that straight away against Will Minson. And the thing that impressed me was not only his work on the ground and sort of around the ground. We all know he's fairly agile for a big bloke, but just his actual ruck work was superb. And we heard the commentators talking about those forward 50 stoppages and the likes of Green and Zorko and Taylor running into space on that boundary line side. But that doesn't mean anything unless the ruckman gets his hand to it. So Steph Martin did an amazing job first up, and if he can produce that, or, you know, 3/4 of that every week, you've got a more than handy ruckman on your hands, haven't you?
Yeah, it's got shades of 2009 where Matthew Leuenberger and Chalman both were injured, and Mitch Clark stepped up and almost made the final squad for All-Australian that year because of it. So, you know, we have history of a ruckman who seems to be maybe third-string ruckman standing up and really taking his opportunity, and I think everyone would love to see Martin continue with this form.
Yeah, definitely. Another big test this week too, Shane Mumford. So he doesn't... there's a lot of good ruckmen in the league, and he's got a couple of monsters straight off the bat, so we'll see how he goes second week around. But you mentioned the little Mozzie squad there, Taylor, Green and Zorko, and it was great to see those guys not only impacting, but that being able to link up together, like, which we haven't seen much of, but one, you know, handballing to the other and kicking to the other, and they look so dangerous when they're together, because you obviously can't lay a glove on them when they're stringing possessions together. So that was really exciting on Saturday night, and definitely reason for optimism in the last 10 weeks of the season.
Yeah, well, I think for a number of years now, Brisbane have been seen and by fans, by opposition clubs, you know, as a pretty slow side. We haven't had a lot of pace, a lot of really quick plays in the side, and now suddenly we looked, you know, at our best, we look like one of the fastest clubs in the competition. That looks a real strength of ours.
Yeah, and that's also not discounting the worth of Pierce Hanley, who I think slowly starting to come back to his better form. He's apparently had a tight hammy the past couple of weeks as well. So once he's 100% and back to his best form, that's another, I guess, element of speed into the team as well, running off half back or running along a wing or through the midfield. So you do start to look, and Rohan Bewick playing his first game back after a number of weeks out of the team. So all of a sudden you do look around, there is a little bit of speed, isn't there, on the fringes and up and down both wings. So yeah, that's a great element, and I guess it's just the confidence to be able to use it too, isn't it? To have a bounce and take the game on and to play on. So that's what we saw a bit of on Saturday night.
Well, I think it took probably until his third year at the club, but I reckon Saturday night was Rohan Bewick's breakout game. We're chatting to him on the Fancast a bit later on. I think everyone hopes he can go on with it, and he's shown a bit up forward in the past, but to have such an influence on the match, both up forward, but also, through the middle of the ground and running out of defence, it was just an outstanding game from him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to say as well, because we know that he's... I'm a bit like you. Obviously, we've seen him used as that half forward, and I've liked his ability to be able to run to the wing and then run back to the forward line. But on Saturday night, it looked like he was given even more licence on a wing to be able to go all the way back and all the way forward, and he was terrific. So it's only one game. We need to see it a few more times first, but definitely signs that we hadn't seen in the previous couple of years. I guess just the full repertoire of what he can show in his game. So he was another highlight for sure.
Yeah, there's a few others to touch on just briefly. Jack Redden again was outstanding, I thought, just like last weekend. And someone who I think we really should take some credit for is Joel Patfull, who since coming on our show has absolutely turned his season around, hasn't he?
He's our man, isn't he? He's come on and killed it the last couple of weeks. So definitely back to his best form and great to see. And just that versatility he's got. I've sort of looked at the Lions' defence this year and wondered at times whether it's too big. But the fact that Patfull is now able to play on those medium-sized and smalls and is back to his best at doing that means that's definitely not a question anymore with Maguire and Clark sort of locking up the bigger guys. Yeah,
absolutely. There was a lot to like in the performance, which makes us look forward to GWS and the potential of 3 wins in a row. Now, if we get this, the calculations are pretty simple. We are a very good chance, if not almost a very good likelihood of not winning the wooden spoon if we win this weekend. So the incentive's there to, rid ourselves of the opportunity of finishing last, which no one wants to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you win this week, you start looking ahead on the table, don't you, instead of what's behind you. So, and there hasn't been anything behind Brisbane for most of the season, so it's a chance to get 2 wins clear of the spoon and start looking up the ladder and, how high you can finish rather than, I guess, how low. So, but it's not going to be easy, is it? It's funny that Brisbane's turned their form around, but so have the Giants in the past 2 weeks.
They don't have the wins to show for it, but their performances against Hawthorn and Essendon were... you could argue they were unlucky to lose those games.
Definitely could have easily won both of those games. So they've turned it around dramatically as well because they were uncompetitive the previous couple of matches to that. So anyone that just sort of expects a third win, and I'm sure the Lions won't be, but I guess any fans out there that think 2 in a row, now we're playing the Giants, should be 3 in a row, I'd have a good hard look again because they're not going to be a pushover, particularly if they bring that effort of the past couple of weeks to the Gabba on Saturday night.
Well, on current form, I would expect really the Giants to have beaten both the Western Bulldogs and Carlton that we came up against with the form they've shown the past 2 weeks. So in many ways, they will be, if they maintain that form, the toughest challenge of the 3-week period, which feels a bit odd to say, seeing as they have had so many odd performances this year, blowouts. But really, they have a lot of talent in their side. That's no news to anyone. And if they can continue that form, then we're really in for a challenge.
That's the challenge for both clubs, isn't it? To do it 3 weeks in a row. It's been difficult for either club. We were just sitting here a couple of weeks ago saying, gee, it'd be nice for Brisbane to string 2 good performances together because we hadn't seen that. Well, now we have seen 2 pretty good performances, somewhat patchy within both, but 2 pretty good performances. Now to see a third one, and that's also a challenge for the Giants. So they're both extremely young lists, and that's what you get with young lists, obviously, is inconsistency. But big challenge, but an enormous opportunity. How great would it be to string 3 in a row? And we came out of the bye talking about winnable matches, and 2 down and another one to come this Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great game at the Gabba. Now, something briefly that we should probably touch on off-field was that the Springfield drama has blown up yet again.
Springfield.
It's a constant source of, I imagine, a bit of annoyance for a lot of fans, probably for someone like you having to cover it as well. It's a bit of a tricky one, a bit of a constant drama, isn't it?
It is. Something seems to be thrown up every week, and without sort of rehashing too much, there was a very good, I guess, good from a journalist point of view anyway, there was a very good story on ABC at the end of last week, which was the latest Springfield update you're talking about. But I guess without delving into it too much, what we have seen now is that when Brisbane does hire its new CEO, which is still probably a couple of weeks away, one of his first ports of call, if not his first, will be to revisit the Springfield and to see whether it is in fact the best option as a training and administration base. So I guess that's the thing we can take out of this, is that hopefully when the new CEO comes in, he will look at that proposal again, go through it with a fine-tooth comb and see whether it is the best option or not. So I guess that'll sort of help put fans' minds at ease, I think.
Yeah, well,
I hope so. I mean, I think we're all in the same boat here. Like, it's just, I don't know if it's dragging on, but it is dragging on, and it's the new things that keep getting thrown up every week are probably a frustration to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Fans, supporters, members, journalists, everyone alike. So hopefully how do you see it, Dom?
Well,
it's a tricky one to touch on, obviously.
It is. I think the major source of frustration, probably for the club itself and the playing list, is going to be the fact that that construction was meant to start on this within the next 6 months, I believe, was when the first stage of genuine construction was meant to start. Now, who knows if it's going to go ahead or not right now, but what the instability causes is a delay. This is a delay of the group getting into these facilities that really would bring them up to par with the rest of the competition. And that kind of a delay, I mean, regardless of what political drama's going on behind the scenes, that delay is just bad for the football club. It's pretty much as simple as that. Now, obviously, they do have the agreement that's signed until June 30, I believe it is, where they can't entertain any other options until then, or at least publicly. So you're not really going to hear them back away from Springfield or anything in that sense until at least after that date. But I just think the instability is something that, whether it's going to be Springfield or whether it's going to be somewhere else, it would just be great to get this sorted within the next 3 months maximum, so you can start planning and start construction.
Well, I guess it's just cool your heels for a while, because until that new CEO comes in, it's going to be hard to, and you're right, the heads of agreement and sign until June 30, and that's probably, as a ballpark, about when a new CEO will come into play. So I think there won't be much publicly announced, I guess, until at least the CEO's announced, and then we'll figure out Springfield from there. But you're right, like, it does delay these things, and I think Springfield was meant to be up and running by 2016, so that's only the rest of this season and one more season's time, isn't it? So you don't really want to delay things much longer than that, no matter what the outcome is. You'd love to see these new facilities up and running by 2016, 2017 at the latest.
Yeah.
Still a couple of years, isn't it? So you'd want to get things cracking pretty quickly.
Yeah, with how the group's building, I think the one of the most important things from an off-field point of view is getting them in facilities that will help them, get to that next level, and getting them in there as soon as they can.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I think some people put a little bit too much emphasis on that sometimes. I cover the Gold Coast for the AFL website as well, and they're still down in tin sheds at the Gold Coast. Like, there's all these perceptions about them being cashed up and whatnot, and they're in the Commonwealth Games precinct at Carrara, which will be renovated and updated in the coming years. But at the moment, their staff are out of demountable buildings. They've got a big tin shed as their gym. So you can get things accomplished. It's not ideal. You can get things accomplished, certainly in the facilities they've got at the moment. And that's obviously what they're going to have to do for the next 18 months at least. Yeah,
it's certainly not an excuse, but it would be something that would be very nice to have sorted either way.
It'd be a nice selling point to try and get kids to re-sign here and to come here in the first place, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. But let's move back to the positivity from on-field as we chat to Rohan Bewick on the Fancast right after this.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions social media activity. Lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
Joining us on the Fancast this week was the best on ground for the Lions on a Saturday night in his best game for the club. We're very happy to have Rohan Bewick on the show. Thanks for joining us, Rohan.
No worries, boys. No problem.
Now, you must be on a bit of a high after not only a great team win, but a brilliant individual performance from yourself.
Yeah, certainly probably the best game I've had. It's nice to get some feedback around a good game for a change rather than just sort of just barely contributing, really. So it's good to have an impact on the game. But yeah, so it was a good reward.
Rohan, the other inclusion on the weekend was Stephen Martin. He also had a terrific game, and he said post-match that the instructions for him were very simple. It was to go in and have a crack and make a contest. What were your instructions going into Saturday night's game?
I just basically play the way I'd been playing in the NEFL, just up the ground and defensively run as well, and just get your hands on the footy like I had been in the previous weeks. And I guess it was pretty similar for Steph as well. He carried in the exact form they did in the airfield, that strong sort of bustling ruck work, and it was no surprise how well it performed.
Now, it did seem to be a pretty different role to the one that we've seen you play in AFL level in the past, and much more like your NEFL role. Was there a change in role on the weekend?
Yeah, no, I played wing the whole game on the weekend, which was good for a change. I'd played wing the last two. Generally, when I'm playing in the NEFL, I play midfield. So, I guess my form in the NEFL on the wing was good enough to thankfully get a look in the AFL side on the wing.
Does that just make you a bit more comfortable, Rohan? Obviously, your running capacity is, pretty high class. Like, are you just able to sort of utilise your strengths a bit more, do you think, playing on the wing?
Yeah, well, I was drafted as winger, so I'd always aspired to get back or aim to get back on the wing in the AFL side. It suits my game, similar to Paparone. The sort of long-running, hard-running midfielder type, so it's definitely enjoyable for me.
You did seem to have more or less a best 22 spot nailed down by the end of last season. I mean, you played a lot of senior footy throughout 2013 to memory. Was it tough coming in with a new coach and then having to really work your way back into the team again? And what kind of things did you have to do to convince him that you were worthy of senior footy again?
Yeah, it was tough. Didn't get many looks in the first part of the season. Was in and out of the team. I was basically just relying on injury to get a spot sort of in the first 12 rounds. But yeah, it was sort of turned out to be a good thing in the end, I guess. I had a couple of weeks to really impress on the wing in the NEFL, so yeah, I'm thankful that I actually had to go and work hard again, and now I got ultimately what I was aiming for, which is a spot in the wing. So hopefully can hold that for as long as possible in the season and whatever comes after that.
And how is that mindset, Rohan? Because Leper's shown this year that, I guess, guys, I think you're 24, is that right? So sort of the mid to late 20s guys, he's not going to, I guess, necessarily give games to. We've seen it with Brent Maloney. We've seen it with Andrew Rains, James Polkinghorn, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
How difficult has that been to adjust to the fact that, you guys almost have to work harder than the younger guys at the moment to sort of force your way back into the team?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. The younger guys, they deserve their spots at the moment, so it does make sort of us older, or middle-aged older guys work a bit harder. But as I said, they probably deserve the spots over us anyway at the moment because they're doing that well. But it does make you work hard and really earn your spot, which isn't a bad thing for yourself. It makes you a better football player, and certainly makes the team better when you got that sort of competitiveness for spots and selection.
Saturday night did seem to be really, and I know it is a bit of an odd thing to say in your third season at the club, but a real breakout game, for you. Did it feel that way on the ground? Were you that happy with your performance off the field as well, that it did feel like once you got off the field, did it feel like a breakout game for you?
Certainly, well, mainly because I hadn't played on the wing really at all in my career, so to have an impact on the wing was pleasing because they want to hopefully get another gig on the wing. But yeah, compared to my last half forward isn't a high impact sort of spot in a team that's sort of struggling for the first part of the year. So it was good to get a bit of reward.
And is it just confidence, do you think, Rohan, or is it like an instruction, the fact that the last couple of weeks the team seems to be, I guess, running a lot more, playing on a bit more, sort of using the speed a bit more?
I guess it's confidence. We especially the first quarter against Carlton when we played exactly like that, sort of went into our shells in the second quarter against Carlton, but I'm sure we got a lot of confidence out of that win, and the feeling around the club all last week was real positive going into the Bulldogs game, so there was a lot of confidence from individuals that we're going to play a good brand of footy and play the way we've been trying to play the first part of the season.
Was that aspect, as you said, going into your shells against Carlton, was that what happened in the second half against the Bulldogs, or was it more of a fatigue thing on Saturday night?
It's hard to say. I reckon, especially in the last 15 minutes of the last quarter, it was probably a bit of a fatigue thing and didn't play the exact type of footy that that we're aiming to when we're in a situation like that. The style that we're after, we didn't do it all, and we tried to keep playing a bit too fast, I think, when we should have just been concentrating on locking down the game and just sort of not trying to get in front even more. And with them, well, they were obviously trying to win the game, so they were taking a lot more risks, and we probably didn't defend their hard running and playing on at all times and that sort of stuff well enough.
We saw Leper get about as frustrated as we have so far this season in the coach's box. Did you guys see that?
That was, yeah, I did see that. That was in the first quarter when Joel kicked the ball to me, and apparently it wasn't called 15, and then I got tackled straight away, so I definitely saw it on the screen. I wasn't sure if he was filthy at me for getting done for holding the ball or whether it was the umpire's call, but I'm pretty sure it was the umpire's call, so certainly it was a bit easier on me.
Yeah, and I think everyone watching that game was a bit surprised to not see that one paid a mark.
Oh, yeah, 20 metres for sure. I reckon 15 metres, 20.
Absolutely. Looking forward to GWS then. I mean, they haven't got the results the past 2 weeks that you guys have gotten, but just like you guys, they have found a real revival in form in the games that they've played. I suppose, obviously it's hard to tell with these expansion sides exactly what you're going to get on any given weekend, what form they're going to play like. But I imagine you guys are very prepared that this could be the biggest challenge of the past 3 weeks.
Well, certainly they pushed Essendon for a large part of the game last week, so we're by no means expecting that it's going to be 3 on the trot and it'll be an easy win. We know they're going to be a good test for us, so yeah, it's going to be a big game for us, and hopefully if we play well enough for 4 quarters, we will be good enough to get the win.
I think still one of their strengths, though, Rohan, over the season is definitely their clearance work. I think on average they're second or third in the comp. Like, is that the nuts and bolts of where it'll come down to, do you think, on Saturday night?
Well, it'll probably be similar to the Bulldogs, and I guess they're a good clearance team, especially with Libba. We just aim to stop their 1 or 2 best clearance players and then beat them on the outside, I guess, and hopefully that will put us in good stead to win the game, but it'll be a good test.
Yeah, well, all the best for the game on Saturday night and the coming few weeks. Hopefully there's a few more wins in there. We're all very excited to see how the list is building and hope to see many more games like Saturday night's one for you. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks a lot, guys.
This weekend, it's a reserves seniors double header with the reserves up against the UWS Giants Saturday afternoon at Coorparoo. That's a 1:30 start. And then the seniors take on the Giants seniors at the Gabba, 7:40 p.m. back in the Saturday night time slot. As we've touched on throughout our show and through chatting with Rohan Bewick on the show today, Mike, it's definitely going to be a challenge on Saturday against the Giants.
Yeah, I think it'll be really tight, Dom. I think Brisbane will just get over the line, but just based on the form of the past 2 weeks, which is normally reasonable form to go off, the Giants are going to be a big challenge. But I think Brisbane's run in the past couple of weeks will be just enough to get them over the line. But I expect it to be quite similar to the last 2 weeks for both teams and be nip and tuck the whole way.
Yeah, well, I did tip the Lions by about 30 last week, which at some stages looked like it might happen.
Looked like a genius at half time.
But this weekend, I think that it's going to be a much closer game than that. And I think if you go into this one expecting a similar performance to our game against GWS last year, where you won convincingly, I think Mays kicked 4 goals, I think you probably need to readjust your expectations or get out the tape of GWS versus Essendon from last weekend, because I don't think they're a side that we're going to, or that any side would be able to, trample over right now.
They certainly seem to have been sparked by all that criticism after the Richmond match a couple of weeks ago, where they were just deplorable, and they've come out the last 2 weeks and really matched, in fairness, a depleted Hawthorn, but still that's you can only play who's in front of you, and the Hawthorn team was still very good, and Essendon, who had been so convincing the week before as well. So they've been terrific the last 2 weeks, and with an ounce of luck could have won either or both. So the Brisbane will have to work hard the entire match to get over the top of the Giants, but I think they will by about 2 or 3 goals, I think.
It is Dane Zorko's 50th match, which is very exciting to see. I mean, it feels like he's been at the club for a lot longer.
It does.
Than 50
It's
games.
a surprise when I saw he was only up to 50. It does feel like he's been here for long. It's only only 2.5 seasons.
Yeah, 50 great game or 49 great games so far. So hopefully another great one for him on a Saturday. And I think, I agree with you. I think it will be just a few goals and the Lions will get over the line. I reckon probably the Gabba factor will play into our hands in the end there. I think the fact that...
Be nice to make it 2 in a row at home, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be really good. And give us some confidence going into probably a few slightly tougher games after that.
What, 3-0 in Perth?
Slightly tougher, just slightly.
You want to win this one, that's for sure.
Absolutely. That is this weekend. We will be back next week to review that match. Hopefully 3 wins in a row. Nice to get a hat trick.
Fingers crossed.
And look forward to the Freo game. For now, though, that's the Fancast. Bye.